What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions podcast. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. We are back and we are in playoff mode. We came back last week to review the Lions' victory over the Vikings, claiming the NFC North, but now we know who we're going to play on Saturday night, 8 p.m. on Fox. Washington Commanders are coming to Ford Field. We're going to dive into it, but before we do, Scott, my man, how the hell are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm good, man. We talked quite a bit before the show, kind of recapping some of the playoffs that have already happened, some of the games in the wild card round. Just crazy first round is kind of not really crazy, more so kind of boring for the most part. A lot of favorites and really only one upset with the Commanders winning, which I'm really pissed at myself. I didn't mention this before the show, and I'll mention it to the audience here. I was texting my buddy Dan. I always text him bets. We go back and forth every day sharing bets. We're just degenerate gamblers. It's really bad. We should probably call the hotline. But we would send these bets every day to each other. And Sunday, before the Eagles game and Packers game, I go, just so you know, if the Packers don't pull off the upset here, I'm betting the Commanders straight because there's got to be an upset. Tomorrow, Monday doesn't count as an upset since it's 4-5. And I didn't end up doing it. I'm really kicking myself for not betting that game straight up. But I think the Lions broke the Vikings. I think there's a lot of stuff that we can get into, but I think we should just jump into this Commanders preview and what we should expect for this game, because that's really the talk of the town right now here in Detroit is, can the Lions win this game in a convincing fashion, or even in just a simple field goal, a point, whatever it is, win this game and get to the NFC Championship game for back-to-back games. And it just, or back-to-back years. It's kind of crazy when you think of it. Like, all these teams just beat the hell out of each other, and the Lions were just sitting back getting that well-needed rest. It's a weird feeling, and I just wonder, does this team have their foot on the gas still, or are they going to ease up at all? What's going to happen? I think we're going to be on the gas here, but what should we expect for this game?
It's interesting because we've never been here before. Right?
Yeah, right, I know.
But not we either. The Lions have not been in this situation before. Getting a bye in the playoffs, it's well-deserved. They were the best team in the NFC in the regular season. Of all the teams that you could have played, well, I hope I don't regret saying this, but of all the teams that you could have played in the divisional round, Washington is the team that I would have preferred out of everybody, right? Like, yeah. It's tough to beat a team twice in a season, let alone 3 times. I mean, if Green Bay would have won that game against Philly, I think they would have handled their business and they'd have been fine. But still, it's not a matchup that I would have been super, pumped about, right?
Yeah.
So. I don't know. I wouldn't have wanted to play the Rams.
I agree. No, I'm with you. I'm glad that the Commanders pulled off the upset because I didn't want to play the Vikings again. I didn't want to play the Rams in this game. Give them another game. Yeah. And then if we play them, okay, so be it. NFC title game. I think it just kind of changes everything. And
I'm cool with Philadelphia and the Rams just kind of cannibalizing each other and,
I agree.
Right, like you guys go. I hope it's a slugfest. Whatever.
I agree. I don't go back and forth. I hope it's 35-34 overtime. Double overtime. I don't care. Just go forever. Play all night.
Yeah, that's whatever. It's fine. It's good. But I mean, Washington poses their own problems. They won. I don't even know what is it. Is it 12 games now, or are they 12 or is it 13 now? Whatever it is.
Either 13th win. I think they were 12-5.
So rookie quarterback takes that franchise in the state it was in a year ago and puts them where they are on the map right now. You couldn't possibly be more excited if you're a Washington fan.
Yeah.
You just couldn't be. So total respect to the Commanders and the way they play and what they've done. What they've done in a year where, you still look at that roster and you think, okay, it's not great. And there are problems, here and there, but Jayden Daniels is playing awesome. And, I suppose that's the one issue where I think there's a clear advantage. That's the way I'm trying to think about this game is, where are the advantages? Like, so the Lions offensive line has a huge advantage over the Washington defensive line. And I think on offense, the Lions should be able to run the ball pretty effectively and put themselves into good down and distance. They'll get chunk plays. Yeah. They're gonna gash the Commanders for, big plays here and there, running the ball. Getting Montgomery back it's gonna be interesting how they bring him back in and whether or not they change much of what they've been doing with Gibbs over the last month, right? Or 3 weeks, whatever it is. So I think the Lions have advantages on offense where I think it's pretty clear that they do. And then it's throwing the ball. Amon-Ra could have a big game. He can't anytime, but this is one of those matchups where you feel like he could really post big numbers in this matchup.
Yeah.
I think Laporta could do some nice things. Jameson Williams is capable of having a huge play, having a big game. So it's just the Lions, I think, on offense are going to be tough. That's a tough ask for Washington's defense. Doesn't mean they don't have good players, because they do. And they do some things pretty well. But I just think that on offense, I think the Lions have some advantages over Washington. Do you see it that way, or how do you see it?
No, I agree. I think the offensive line getting that week of rest is massive. I know we've got to monitor Kevin Zeitler a little bit with the hamstring, but I think Mahogany can step in and be okay. I think he played just fine when he was in a pinch earlier this year and played. I think Montgomery coming back is massive, simply for the short yardage stuff. We saw it against the Vikings, 4th and inches, taking the deep shot to J-Mo, got tipped to the line of scrimmage type of deal. If you had Montgomery in, odds are you're giving it to him and he's falling forward for a yard, getting that little stuff. And I don't think him coming back impacts Jahmyr Gibbs really by any means, because Gibbs, we know what he is. He's the feature back. He's number one, number two running back in the league. I mean, I've said it before, he's a top 3 back in this league. And Montgomery was a guy that had played, 30 to 50% of the snaps, somewhere in that range when Gibbs when they were both healthy. So it's not like he's going to come in and take 70% of the snaps and Gibbs is going to go to the bench. They're going to split it pretty 50-50. And if anything, I think Montgomery will probably have his least amount of snaps played as far as, in-game status being active and things like that on the year, because I think they're really going to use him more so down in the red zone, short yardage, and bringing him in for like certain play actions type stuff, and then looking at, you mentioned St. Brown and Laporta and J-Mo. Looking at those guys, I think you can always expect something big from them. But I think one difference maker that maybe hasn't been discussed too much in the passing game, just overall this year, has been Khalif Raymond. And I think when you look at the Lions in a kind of a different spot, when they were trying to break the curse that they had of going to Lambeau and not being able to win there, one of the key playmakers for them in the passing game during that time, maybe it was 2 years ago, was Khalif Raymond. And we've seen it over time. They kind of pick and choose those spots to really bring him out with their diverse play calling that they have. So I wonder, does Khalif Raymond have a big part in this game with J-Mo? You run hitch seam concepts, those types of things. And you make safeties and corners and other defenders wonder who's going deep here, who's breaking back to the quarterback, who do I have to cover, what do I got to do to stop this? So I think the Lions offense will be fine. The defense, I think, still will be fine. I think, maybe Daniels runs a touchdown in, maybe they throw a couple for a touchdown, maybe Brian Robinson breaks one for a touchdown. Who knows? Do they score a touchdown? We'll see. I think the big thing is how do they contain Daniels while staying aggressive, because that was the problem against Josh Allen in Buffalo, right? Like, they didn't blitz at all in that game. They were so worried about, I think, him running and just throwing it deep that they were very conservative. Can they somehow shape this defense and be a little bit more aggressive? Having Anzalone back will be huge. We'll monitor Rakestraw. He did not practice today. We'll talk some injuries here in a minute, but he didn't practice today with an illness. He's activated, it seems like, from IR, from a hamstring. So it seems like it's more like an illness for him today to not practice. But do you get him back? Tyrion Arnold's going to play. So these guys are going to play. Daniels and Terry McLaurin, they're going to take some deep shots. It's going to happen. They do it every single game.
So this is we're mind melded here.
Yeah, like always.
It makes me not worry, but if the Lions like to play lots of man coverage, and it matters if you're running verticals with McLaurin or whoever else they have, and you're in man coverage a lot of times, your corners are turning their back on the quarterback, and they're running with receivers. And Daniels is the kind of quarterback who's going to eat you alive if you give him space to run, especially if that's how they decide they want to function within their offense, right? Like, we're going to do a lot of quarterback running, and hey, anytime you see, McLaurin running deep and that corner on that side of the field has turned his back on you, you can beat linebacker in the flat to the corner.
Right.
You can take off, go. So that's going to be the challenge, is how do the Lions decide they can limit his ability to run the ball and move the chains and keep him sort of contained. And they've done a good job of that recently. It's just, how do they do it in this matchup? And that's the one specific issue that I think about that scares me about this matchup with Washington's offense. I mean, Daniels, he's very accurate. He seems super composed. There's a lot to his game that's super interesting. He's still a rookie, so I would expect the pressure to kind of pile up a little bit. But it's just, to me, it's how do you prevent his running, and if you can, and you force him to beat you pushing the ball down the field, I think that's kind of like, in a perfect world, that's what you get.
Yeah.
We don't live in a perfect world. So I would expect him to make some plays running the ball and doing some things with his legs. It's just how much, and then what's the impact upon that game with his ability to run.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I am.
Yeah, and I'll give him credit. He doesn't focus just on, Terry McLaurin. He spreads it out. He goes to Noah Brown. He finds Zach Ertz. He's really done a good job with De'Ami Brown, who I was a big fan of coming out of North Carolina. So he's done a good job getting the football out. They got Austin Eckler back from injury, so that's a big piece. You got to monitor that. But I think the Lions they have enough to keep this game in front of them, and they're a team that late in games, they just find a way no matter what the circumstance is. So I think that's why I just kind of have that feeling of like, no matter what they decide to do with Jayden Daniels, they're going to be okay, because offensively they can score with anybody.
Yeah.
And defensively, it just seems like they've been able to get big stops. Obviously, we know they didn't get them in certain games because of certain circumstances that, they had Ben Neiman and Zeke Turner starting on defense. It changes with Anzalone back, and we haven't seen much from Brian Branch in recent weeks as far as like a big turnover. We haven't had a Tyrion Arnold interception yet this year. Is there an underthrown pass? Is there one where Arnold is in phase with McLaurin deep and he picks it? Is it one with De'Ami Brown over the middle that he jumps? I mean, he hooked off Jayden Daniels in college last year, so maybe he does it here this year. I will say, too, since the middle of November, Jayden Daniels going into the November 14th game against the Eagles, he had 2 interceptions. Since then, he has thrown 7 interceptions. He finished with 9 on the year. So he's started to make some more mistakes. I think teams have kind of figured out what to do with their coverage. And I'm gonna put a lot of trust in Aaron Glenn, who should be an NFL coach next year as far as being a head coach. I would.
Kirby Joseph picks off a pass in this game.
Oh, absolutely. I think with how
floater.
A floater. I think Daniels, if he's not trying to throw it deep, he can attack the middle.
Yeah. Sometimes high.
Yeah, sometimes high, whether that's to Zach Ertz, whether that's to Brown with a dig route. I think that they'll be fine there. I'll be curious, how much do they blitz? Do those blitzes get home? Because you're not going to see really anything out of them under center. It's going to be shotgun, quick passes, getting it out, RPO stuff, zone read. On my Twitter page, I had 9 clips put out. The last 24 hours or so, 9 of those plays, every single one, he's shotgun or pistol. So it's going to be very interesting. I mean, I think the Lions entering this game as 9-10 point favorites on Sunday night is huge. I think that just goes to show what Vegas thinks of the Lions compared to the Commanders. Not saying they're going to cover that. You never know, but and I personally don't care. Just win the game. You can win by 3, win by 2, whatever.
Sure.
Just get some turnovers. Force a punt or 2. Get a turnover or 2. A key sack here or there.
Yeah. What
does Zadarius Smith do? Right? I mean, you brought him in for this type of reason, experienced player, playoffs at home. I think he played pretty well against Minnesota. So I think
that's a great point. I didn't even think about it. What does the crowd do? The crowd and the noise do to a guy who's, you said it, in shotgun all the time?
Yeah.
It's it's a little different than being under center as far as communicating and that kind of stuff. So the crowd noise is going to be a big one for everybody going to the game, man. Pack up your lungs well and be as loud as you can, because it can matter. There's so much to like about this matchup, and specifically how the Lions match up in some ways with the Commanders on offense. It's going to be hard for Washington for them to limit what the Lions do. But there's some injuries I think that we got to be paying attention to. You mentioned Kevin Zeitler. That's a big one, and it makes me wonder: do they flip Glasgow over to play right guard and put in Mahogany as the left guard, or maybe Awasika or whoever? I'm not sure how they would do it. But I want to say the Lions have done that this year with Glasgow. They've moved him around a little bit. Obviously, you trust them to do the right things, but that injury we want. I mean, it'd be better. Period. If Zeitler played.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think you bring you bring his experience into the playoffs over a rookie. I think that goes a long way, and that's why you brought him in here, right? Like, so you didn't have to have a rookie or some veteran that maybe didn't play as much as him over the course of their career up to this point, because he's been in the league for so long. There's a reason why you brought him in here for this type of stuff. So I would hope that he gets to play, and really he could miss the whole week of practice, and I would still feel okay if he was to suit up on Sunday or Saturday night and play. I mentioned the Rakestraw thing. We'll obviously monitor that. Arnold was a full practice participant today, as well as David Montgomery.
Yeah.
And other than that, I mean, I don't think we're gonna, I don't think we'll see Emmanuel Mosley suit up. I don't know if we'll see, anybody else activated or anything.
Isn't he on NFI at this point?
I think so. I mean, but I think they still have to put him up on the injury report to show whether he's practiced or not.
Okay.
I'll double check it right now. I'm pulling it up with their practice.
I might be making up the non-football injury thing.
He's not on there.
Put him on there.
I lied. It was Pat O'Connor, but it sounds like he's not going to play anyways. So it sounds like his season's probably done with the calf injury. Maybe he's back for the Super Bowl if they make it, because that's another 4 weeks away or so. So we'll end up seeing. But Commander's injury report, I should have probably had this open, but I'm slacking over here. The big injury for them is Daron Payne. I will say that. That's one injury where it's like, man, don't know what's going to happen there. He's got a thumb injury. It's not. He practiced in limited fashion today, but does he need surgery? They're probably going to just brace it and wait for after the season. Yeah. Bobby Wagner's got an ankle cast. Yeah, big cast, which is important. I mean, when you look at the Lions with how much, they do with the diversity that they have up front with what they can do from a blocking scheme perspective, whether it's gap or power or zone or however they want to block things, Payne is probably going to get chest to chest at times because he's going to be able to create that separation. So that's big. Bobby Wagner they're banged up. They are definitely banged up as far as injured players. They've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. They got 14 players on the list. Frankie Louvu's on there with a shoulder, but he was a full participant. Marshawn Lattimore with a hamstring, but he was full. He did not play very well last week.
Tampa seemed to kind of want to go at him.
Yeah.
Or at least they did early in that game.
Yeah. So, you wonder how healthy is he? Is the hamstring a problem? If he's going to line up over St. Brown, we already kind of know St. Brown's probably going to get his. And if it's JMO, can he go deep with JMO? So I think they're going to monitor that. And they know him, right? Like they know Lattimore and the player that he is because of the time with the Saints. So it just makes you wonder, are they going to have to put a safety over the top? And now you're going to create mismatches in other places.
So I think Lattimore in that scenario loses both ways because I don't know if he's fast enough to hang with JMO.
Mm-hmm.
And he's certainly not physical enough to deal with St. Brown's releases at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think you're going to have to he's going to require help no matter how they play that. And if the Lions want to be like, hey, you can travel with, I don't know if Lattimore travels, kind of stuff where they'll just isolate him on a specific guy. But, if they want to do that, that's fine. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that gives the Lions even more of an advantage if you just eliminate him in their defense. So
no, I agree. And I think that's the thing. Like I would think they would have him travel. I don't think he's going to be simply a boundary corner or just a field corner. I think they're going to find a way to try to limit one of the Lions receivers and he's going to trail. Cause that's why it seemed like Mike Evans was always the guy getting the ball with Marshawn Lattimore in the area. So, one key thing as far as injuries, outside of some of those key names, their kicker, Zane Gonzalez, was limited today with a hip. We already know kind of his importance because he was the one that hit the field goal off the upright and in. But the other thing is, and just from film study last night of watching the Cowboys Week 12 game against them, is every single one of their tight ends is on the injury report. And they run 12 and 13 personnel a bunch. Yeah. And they tend to run away from it, from what I noticed, at least against Dallas. But every single tight end is on there. Zach Ertz did not practice today with a rib and rest day. Ben Sinnott, I never know how to pronounce his name. Yeah. Shoulder, he was limited. John Bates, shoulder, he was full. And then Colson Yankoff, hamstring, but was full. So it's important that those guys are practicing. But
it's interesting watching that game. So they took Zach Ertz. I only know this because I'm a degenerate myself.
Yes.
And I had
a player prop. No way.
I did. I had De'Ami Brown to score the first touchdown in that game.
No way.
I did. And there was a couple other things, but I just needed Zach Ertz to score a touchdown. And it would have been, it'd have been a pretty healthy, it'd have been good, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I noticed that on first down, the majority of time, now, again, just one little look at this, but Ertz was off the field a lot on first down.
Mm-hmm.
Ertz was off the field a lot when they ran. I'm not saying it's a tell, but when Ertz is in the game, you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
It almost seems like the way they line him up, a lot of times it's out wide, he's not attached to the line of scrimmage at all.
Right.
So it just feels like it's one of those things where if Ertz is in the game, you can feel pretty good knowing that the idea behind what they're trying to do is throw.
Yeah.
So, just again, it's a one game kind of glimpse at it. I haven't paid attention to, that much. I mean, I've watched them enough to feel like that their offense is pretty good and they can do some interesting things. And McLaurin is really good. And he and Daniels have what feels like a pretty nice connection going.
Mm-hmm.
But, they do run a lot of 12, and that was that's kind of why I noticed it, because it's like I'm all pissed off, kind of fired up about I need Ertz to score. Why is he coming? Why is he off but the other tight end stayed on the field all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So lots of 12, and if Ertz is to miss, it's a big loss for that offense. It just is, because those other, I mean, he's a good player, but he's a rookie.
Right.
They don't really have a seam stretching tight end if they don't have Ertz.
Yeah.
And so that would really limit their offense, especially the check down stuff where you feel like Daniels is going to want to do that a lot early in this game just to get a little comfort going. But it's an interesting matchup, and I think it's a pretty exciting matchup. It's Saturday night in Detroit, man.
That place could be rocking, dude. Yeah. It's going to be rocking. And I just remember the playoff game last year with the Rams of how loud it was. And, this has been a long time coming to play the Commanders. We talked about it last week a little bit. Like, my first playoff memory is the Lions against the Commanders the year after Barry retired, and they got crushed. I had the flu. I remember it like it was yesterday. We got Hungry Howie's pizza on a Friday. It came up burnt, and not burnt, but like a little burnt and tasted burnt or whatever. And it just was weird. I still remember the taste of it, and got the flu, was sick as a dog for like 48 hours. And I just remember laying on the couch, just tears in my eyes. The Lions season came to an end, and that was the last playoff game until, Stafford showed up and then they lost and all that stuff and whatever. But 8 years old, and it's like they've had our number. I mean, they've beaten us and all that. And I think there's plenty of bulletin board material for the Lions. You saw some of the stuff from their fan base as far as, we want Detroit and posting TikToks and stuff. And these guys see it, and they know the history of this matchup, and Campbell knows the history, and he's going to make them well aware. So I will say this as we kind of close up shop. I am curious as we talk about Marshawn Lattimore. Does he shadow Amon-Ra or J-Mo? But for the Lions defense, does Amik Robertson, who does he shadow? Because he had such a big game against Justin Jefferson and the Vikings 2 weeks ago. You have to assume he's playing a key part in the outside. Does he shadow somebody? And does he have a big game? Because he could have had a pick in that game. Yeah. Does he play well enough again to where he gets maybe a pass breakup? And does he get a pick? So I think the Lions are in a right spot with Jayden Daniels coming off of a game with no interceptions against the Bucs, where maybe he throws one or two in a hostile environment, far more hostile than what Tampa Bay provides. Yeah. I wonder what that defense is going to look like from a secondary perspective with Arnold and possibly Rakestraw, and then Amik, and then you have Vildor, and then Branch, and the importance there. Melifonwu. I would have to imagine Branch and Melifonwu will be rotating in and out and down into the box to really keep Jayden Daniels somewhat contained to the best of their ability. But that was just kind of in my head as we kind of get ready to close our shop here. So
I wonder. I don't think the Lions really have done this in the past, but do they spy him? I'm not sure that they. I can't remember a time where they really have done that.
Yeah,
but is that something where, with their personnel, you're able to do it because of what Anzalone offers? Maybe it's a player like Melifonwu who does that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Branch would have to play. Maybe Branch plays outside corner in that scenario, and Amik Robertson goes back into the slot and takes some of that, that kind of coverage responsibilities. It's something I've been kicking around. Do they really want to fool around with a spy?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I could see them doing it at times, but I'm not sure it's a full-time thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I will give the Commanders' offensive line some credit. I think players like Andrew Wiley and Sam Cosmi and Tyler Biadasz, who I was a big fan of Wisconsin, these guys have done a really good job getting up to the second level. So guys like Jack Campbell and Alex Anzalone, they're going to have to be ready for some of that second level stuff, because that's how they attack you. They get 2 or 3 offensive linemen up to the second level. It's almost like a influence wham trap type of run that they like to run. It's something that the Ravens like to do with Lamar, and they're kind of doing it with so much 12 and 13 personnel, and they get guards and centers up into space, and it creates a crease for Jayden Daniels. So we'll see how they attack it. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a fun game, but total set at 54.5. The Lions opened up as 8.5-point favorites, and probably for good reason. So I feel pretty good about it. We'll see how we feel next week if we are doing a off-season show, or are we going to continue to the NFC Championship game?
Yeah, this team just feels like they're built for this kind of stuff. Obviously, this is as important as it gets. You lose, you're out.
Yeah.
I can't see. It's tough to see them laying an egg after the season that they've gone through.
Yeah.
And all the injuries and the attrition and everything that's gone on. It's just tough to see it, ending as quickly as abruptly as it would, right? So,
right.
Let's just cross our fingers and hope that they play a good game and they get out of this one, and then it's you mentioned it, and then it's NFC title game at home, and
Rams or Eagles, who's it going to be?
Yeah, exciting stuff.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how this thing goes. And if you're going to the game, have fun, be safe, stay warm as you wait for 8:00 to hit. I'm sure they're going to open the door.
Be loud.
Yeah, they'll probably open the doors for everybody around 5:30 if I had to guess. And you'll probably be sitting there watching the Chiefs and Texans.
Sounds like a pretty good time if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, they open up the beer stuff. You're sitting there. It's a Saturday night. You get to go to the casino afterwards if you want. I mean, there's so much to do down there now. It's going to be a fun time. There's actually a lot going on Saturday night. You got the Pistons at 5:00. You got the Wings at 7:00. You got that at 8:00. I don't have enough TVs. We got to get more TVs.
Yeah. You know what might be an awesome place to be? If you could stay warm enough, that little outdoor area by Little Caesars with the big screen.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine how wild that will be, especially after the Wings game, like during the fourth quarter kind of stuff when people are coming out of Little Caesars, and I would hope that they would have the Lions game going, but that'd be fun, man.
Yeah, I mean, imagine next Sunday, 6 p.m. after a 3:00 kick, if everything goes right and you're on your way to New Orleans. We'll see. Going to be a lot of fun. You guys can let us know what you think is going to happen in this game by commenting below right here on YouTube. Of course, you can rate, review, and subscribe to Detroit Lions Podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your favorite shows. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter or X at Russ NFL Draft, at Bischoff_Scott. You got anything else to add?
Nope, we're good.
All right, I got
Have fun, everybody.
Yeah, enjoy. Go Lions. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. This has been Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions Podcast.